I'm Jack Kennedy, and they hit a lot harder in my opinion too.
What is up, everybody? My name is Keelan McNamara, and everyone's got a plan until they get hit with my views.
I am Hunter Boss. He just wanted to go to the distance by the looks of it, but he couldn't even do that.
And this is the MMA Island Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island Podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. We have a great episode lined up for you today, a lot to talk about. We had a good fight night this past Saturday. We're going to go ahead and get started today with our potential fights of the year because we had a really good fight on this last fight night that a lot of people are calling a fight of the year. So Hunter, go ahead and get us started. What are you thinking for fights of the year so far?
Fights of the year, I'm kind of split right now. There's one that's had a really good back and forth fight, but there's another fight that just got to showcase one of my favorite fighters of all time. So I'm going to give you guys both. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar is definitely one of them here.
Yep.
He broke so many records, absolutely display of striking and accuracy and just overall heart from Calvin Kattar as well as Max Holloway. We got to see some of the look away punches, some of the I'm the best boxer in the UFC. Some of the greatest, just one-liners we've had from UFC, we could see from Max Holloway. And we're truly shown again that Max Holloway is the people's champ. My second fight here is Yuri Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes, which I feel like is not too big of a surprise. I mean, this fight was awesome. Back and forth action. At one point, I feel like Yuri Prochazka was out on his feet when he got upkicked. But then again, he went on to go deliver one of the most insane knockouts of all time, the spinning back elbow. I think only the third ever or second ever, which is also amazing. We got to see Yuri Prochazka's second fight in the UFC. And that being his second fight, we can only imagine what's going to be his third, fourth, and fifth. He's going to be an absolute superstar by the end of the year. And I can't wait to see Max Holloway and Yuri Prochazka back in the octagon.
Yeah, I absolutely love those picks. I think that is the perfect definition for Max Holloway. He is the people's champion. I love that a lot, Hunter, so that is brilliant. And no real shock, Holloway's one of my top three, and it is Calvin Kattar. Not much more we can say about this that we haven't already said over the past number of months. I mean, most strikes ever landed in a single fight from Holloway, just stupidly good technique. I mean, quite frankly, better boxing technique than quite a lot of boxers as well in this day. That tells you just how good Max Holloway is. And the thing that almost disappoints me about this fight is how much Calvin Kattar gets overlooked, because he showed so much heart not to just quit on the stool and to see the fight out. And he would have been totally forgiven for giving up, because he was taking a lot of punishment, and a lot of punishment that you could define as being unnecessary with the fight already being lost. But massive credit to him. The man's got a heart the size of New England itself. He just didn't give up. He saw it out, and it's the true sign of a proper fighter and sportsman. So credit to both of them. Unbelievable fight. My second fight is Shane Burgos, Edson Barbosa. And the reason I've put this on this list, not only because it was the fight it was, is because Jack told us this would be a fight of the year contender, and he was absolutely bang on from the beginning. What a fight this was.
Oh, definitely.
Just unbelievable. It was a war from the beginning to the end, and just absolutely vile Muay Thai kicks from Edson Barbosa. I mean, whenever someone lands a kick or a punch that makes you physically cringe, imagine how it feels for the person who's receiving that punch or kick. And that's how I felt throughout that fight with Burgos and Barbosa. Just insane fight from just the whole length of it. Unbelievable knockout. Unfortunate for Shane Burgos, he's as tough as nails. But Edson Barbosa has found his home at 145. And if this fight's anything to go by, he's going to be a nightmare for everybody in that division. And my third fight is Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. And before anybody says anything, this is not a biased pick because Oliveira's in my dream team. It was genuinely one of my favorite fights of the year so far. Oliveira gets dropped very early on, and Chandler's finished a lot of people who he knocks down early, not Charles Oliveira. He uses his jiu-jitsu really well. He survives. He even manages to get a couple of good shots in before the bell goes. And then 17 seconds after the beginning of the second round, he lands a beautiful, I think it was a left hook. I'm pretty sure it was.
It
He
was.
slips the overhand, stunningly good left hook, and the fight's over from there. And that's a fight that will gain a lot more momentum over the following years for how good it truly was. So those are my picks for the fight of the year, for fights of the year so far. I would add the most recent fight, Santiago Ponzinibbio and Miguel Baeza, because that was just unbelievable. But if I had to narrow it down to three, those are my three.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I'll get started with what you guys both mentioned was the Holloway Cater fight. And that was just unbelievable. I think we can all safely say that Max Holloway has locked up performance of the year for that fight.
Most
Probably
definitely.
for the past 5 years at least, he's locked up that award. So definitely that. And it's got to be one of the fights of the year because once you're done watching it, you literally have goosebumps from watching it, and you witness history. It was unbelievable. Burgos Barbosa, I have that on my list as well. It was just so fun. Everything about it was amazing. I was so happy that it lived up to what I thought would be to the hype that was set behind it. But I mean, it always was going to. Edson Barbosa looked phenomenal. He was back to what Edson Barbosa actually looks like whenever he's at his best. Burgos is always going to come forward. And the ending was one of the most insane things you will ever see. I really do like the Yuri Prohashka versus Dominic Reyes shout because that fight was unbelievable. Yuri was dominating and then he got caught and it looked like he was struggling to recover, but nope, he lands a spinning back elbow and knocks Dominic Reyes out cold. It was unbelievable. Everything about that, the momentum shifts and everything. And Dominic Reyes, even though he lost, he put up a really good showing for himself and fighting one of the top guys in the UFC right now and certainly in the light heavyweight division in Yuri Prohashka. So that was a great fight. And then I do actually include Ponzinibbio versus Miguel Baeza. And this is for the fight itself because the fight itself was amazing on a fight night where the co-main and main event were good and that fight was good, but it was really lacking a lot of other talent. And this fight really showed up and delivered. And Ponzinibbio, with everything that he's been going through, with being out for 2 years, for almost over 2 years with his injuries, when before he was almost a title challenger. He was one or two fights away from a title shot. To come back and then lose by a knockout, it's so tough. And honestly, I didn't really know if he was going to go much further than that. I thought just to be able to recover from an injury like that and to do it, not many people can do that. But what Ponzinibbio showed in that fight after getting dominated in the first round was just pure heart and the ability to overcome things, which was just honestly inspiring to watch. And it was amazing to watch as well. His leg was battered. He started throwing leg kicks, and that hurt Baeza. The jab was unbelievable. And that third round is one of the rounds of the year for sure. And at the end of it, they were just doing full Max Holloway versus Ricardo Lamas there, just throwing bombs and everything right to the end. It was amazing. And so I have to give it a shout. I don't know if it will win Fight of the Year. I don't think it will, but it's got to be mentioned just because of not only the fight itself, but everything going into it. Baeza, the undefeated person coming up, Ponzinibbio trying to revive his career. And honestly, he might have just done it there. I don't think he should be getting the top welterweights because I don't think he's ready for that yet. But that fight right there might be the kickstart to him feeling more confident and starting to recover from Ponzinibbio, which was really exciting to see. And yeah, so that's why I have it in my fights of the year as well.
Yeah, great shouts, and that was a fantastic fight to watch. It was a much needed fight for that fight card. I
Yeah,
feel
definitely.
like a lot of
Absolutely.
people don't realize that that fight right there helped really shape that fight card. I feel like Dana and the matchmakers did a fantastic job putting it together. And yeah, no, you guys had some fantastic picks. I love it. The UFC is all about this. I love watching all the greatest fights of the year. You stack them back and forth. It's no like bad pick, and there is no
Oh, right.
bad pick when it comes to a fight of the year contender because when it comes down to it, these two people, they just step in the octagon and they go out there and they give it their heart. And that's what a fight of the year is. I got to love it.
Yeah, I mean, I love every single pick that all of us have made. There's not a single fight that's been put forward that I would argue with in any way. And the reason I love all of them is because you have a fight of the year contender when neither fighter's stock goes down. In fact, very often both fighters' stock goes
Definitely.
up. And in any and every fight you've just heard mentioned there, both fighters have gone up pretty exponentially, even when they've lost. And to me, that's a real indicator of a fight of the year. And we saw that on Saturday night. Like Miguel Baez's stock is only going up. Ponzinibbio got a much, much needed performance in there, and his stock is going to go back up to where it always should have been. So that's the key indicator for me, and I'm very happy at all of those picks.
Oh, definitely. You can't go wrong unless you pick Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero for your
Try
fight.
Derek Lewis and
Derek Lewis and
Ngannou.
Ngannou, absolutely, yeah. But yes, good fights all around. This year has already lived up, and we're not even halfway through. It's amazing. So let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the fight night. The co-main event now: Marcin Tybura versus Walt Harris. Tybura getting the finish over Walt Harris in the first round. Hunter, what do you make of this fight?
This fight was a lot of fun to watch. I feel like this fight was going to end in the first round, second round, which it did. And but it didn't end how I thought it would be. Walt Harris had a bunch of power behind his shots and even hurt Marcin Tybura at one point, which surprised me. I wasn't expecting, Walt Harris to be this in tune and this ready to go for the fight, which I was happy about. But then Marcin Tybura lands a fantastic takedown, and then just the ground and pound continues to be a threat to Walt Harris. And the ground and pound, ground and pound, ground and pound. That was the name of the game. And then towards the end of the round, finally stopped, and Marcin Tybura gets that victory that he much wanted and deserved. So, congrats to Marcin Tybura. I hate to see Walt Harris lose, but that's another loss in the column for Walt Harris.
Yeah, it's both good and bad. It's a great win for Marcin Tybura, well-known name, good performance, and of course, it is very difficult to see Walt Harris lose. He's just a very likable guy. In fact, I'd say every fight fan loves Walt Harris, so it is difficult. But in terms of the fight itself, Harris actually came out the way he needed to.
Yeah.
He came out really, really well, unloaded on Marcin Tybura, just came out and threw everything but, and maybe including the kitchen sink at him as well. And the fact that Tybura survived that was impressive in its own right. But then towards the end of the round, he lands the takedown, he gets in the dominant position, and he just starts landing the ground and pound. And unfortunately, Walt Harris just didn't have an answer for it. And realistically, it was a good stoppage, and it's another win for Marcin Tybura. And like Hunter said, it's another L in Walt Harris's record, which sucks. But it was a good win for Marcin Tybura as well. He's another very likable guy, and he's on a very, very good run now. He will definitely be looking up towards the top 6, top 7 of the division now, no question. And yeah, very good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you guys. Walt Harris for me has fallen into the same kind of trap for the past 3 fights where he hurts his opponent really bad. I guess not so much the Volkov fight, but especially Alistair Overeem in this fight right here too. He hurts his opponent really bad, and then he empties it all out trying to finish him rather than picking his shots and everything just because of the emotion in the moment and trying to go for the finish and get that finish in the first round. And then what happens is when you're facing the competition that Walt Harris is facing, which is at the top level still at heavyweight, and a guy with Tybura, he will weather the storm. He is rarely finished. He is a massive guy for that division. He weathers the storm, and then if he gets you down, very few people are going to be able to get back up from that unless you're Derek Lewis probably and you can just stand up. But most people, 90% of people on the planet Earth would not be able to get back up from that. And just the amount of shots that you're throwing, it's not even about the amount of volume. It's just any shot from a heavyweight in that position when you're sprawled out on your back, it's going to be deadly. And he did what he had to do. It was a really great performance by Tybura. He showed heart. He showed that he can stay in there. He showed that he can compete with the best. As for Walt Harris, it is another loss, but he's facing the top. I would like to see, honestly, Walt Harris versus, I know Greg Hardy's booked, but I think Greg Hardy would be a good fight for Walt Harris. I think they would match up well, and it's also not Tybura is so good, Volkov is so good, Alistair Overeem is so good, and I'm not saying you don't want to always be fighting the best people, but sometimes it's okay to take a step back and just fight a contender that's coming up or someone that's that just to get your momentum back. I would like to see that for Walt Harris, and hopefully he can come back, but as for Tybura, I thought he fought very, very well, and he should be getting some great contender fights coming up soon. And I can't wait to see how he competes with the top of the heavyweight division.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. What this fight reminded me a lot of was the Tyron Woodley Vicente Luque fight. Walt Harris, he went out there and did what he needed to do, just like Tyron Woodley did. He came out and he was strong. He wasn't just waiting for that one punch. He went out there and he was trying to push the pace. He was trying to land those big shots, but he just got caught. Well, Tyron Woodley got caught, but then Tybura caught Walt Harris with a takedown. So these things happen in MMA. You may have the best game plan of all time, but you can't always prepare for exactly what's going to happen. So I hope Godspeed to Walt Harris. I hope he can recover quickly and get in the octagon soon. And just like I think Greg Hardy would be a fantastic matchup, or maybe just an unranked opponent. Just give him a little bit of a break. He's been facing the best of the best, the cream of the crop. Just give him a little laid back break. Maybe take a few months off again, and then just come back, be ready to be more ready than ever, and just get this W again, Walt Harris. We know you can. You have the capability, you have the skill set.
Yeah, I actually agree with Jack's point that he just made about Greg Hardy, but I actually think Walt Harris should have done this at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And what I mean
Yes,
by that is
yes.
this. I am extremely conscious and aware of the sensitivity of what happened to Walt Harris. And, we all are. No one could feel any more for Walt Harris than we do. Again, we've talked about it, and may God forever shine peace on Anaya Blanchard, because it was awful what happened. And it's a testament to the man that Walt Harris is. Let's take the fighting out of it for a second. It's a testament to the character and the sheer unbreakability of the man to even still be in the UFC, let alone fighting one of the greatest heavyweights there's ever been in Alistair Overeem. I mean, to come back from such personal tragedy, and that is what that was tragedy. To come back from that and fight Alistair Overeem in any era is just a behemoth task. And truthfully, Walt Harris should have taken the Greg Hardy fight then. He needed a fight to come back into to make sure that, everything was still going as normally as it possibly could be. I think he showed how much true character and just toughness he possesses, but I think that was the wrong decision looking back. Of course, hindsight's a beautiful thing, it always is. But I think if he'd have taken the Greg Hardy fight then in his comeback, I think things would have been a lot different for him. Obviously, when you lose one fight, we've seen it with so many fighters. We've seen it with BJ Penn, Cody Garbrandt. We've seen it with the best of the best. One loss can send you down such a bad spiral that it's so hard to get momentum again. And that's what the Overeem loss has done to Walt Harris. Again, people, thankfully, nobody's hating on Walt Harris, nor should they be.
Oh, never.
But if this were any other fighter, people would be saying, he needs to be cut and this, that, and the other. Let's not forget who he's lost to. He's lost to the best the division has to offer. Marcin Tybura is no joke. Alistair Overeem could be 70 and he still would not be a joke. So there is no shame and no loss of dignity in losing to two beasts at heavyweight. So I think Walt Harris needs to let himself have an easier fight to a degree and justify that to himself, or take a break, or do whatever works for him. But he's earned the right to give himself the momentum again. He doesn't have to go up against the best. He needs to give himself a fair chance of being the true Walt Harris.
Yeah, I think that was very well said. The other thing I think that was contributing to that a lot was that was a main event against Alistair Overeem as well. That was a fight night main event. So not only are you facing Alistair Overeem, which honestly, I get wanting to jump right back in where you left off, because that fight would, if none of that ever happened, which I won't even get into that, but he would have been fighting Alistair Overeem and he would have had a good chance to win, in my opinion. And it's so tough. And with the fight night and they're advertising everything, and it's just like, you can't even imagine being in that situation. And it's just, for that fight and everything, it's just really terrible to see. So I do agree with you and everything, but I I can't blame him for any of his actions either, because like I wouldn't be able to fight again. I don't think I would be able to fight again. I don't think I would be that strong. I don't think a lot of us would be that strong. Just again, overall, Walt Harris is an inspiration no matter what, just to step in there, and I'm happy for him just personally that he's able to step in there. And I do agree with what you guys said, and I do think a next fight for him. Not that any fight is easy, but there's a difference between fighting top 5 guys in Tybura as opposed to facing lower level guys in the UFC. Again, no fight is a joke, or every fight's taken seriously, but a fight can give you momentum, which is what I think we all think Walt Harris needs. So well said, guys. Let's go on to our main event now, another heavyweight fight. And this one was very, very good. A return of Rosenstruck. Got a win over Sakai in the first round. Hunter, what did you make of this main event?
I feel like we were all not surprised that this was going to happen, but I was surprised this was going to happen at basically the last second of the first round. Nearly a buzzer beater shot here. And, he's such a great fighter, and he has such power that people seem to sleep on, because he can knock out anyone from anywhere. It looked like he barely even touched Augusto Sakai, but he still fell over. When he delivered that punch, I'm like, holy moly, that landed? And then, holy moly, he's on the ground. And then the ground and pound, that punch afterwards, I'm like, oh, that thing was deadly. That was deadly. He was out. He was out there right as soon as that fist hit Augusto Sakai on the ground. I knew the fight was over, and it wasn't like it was an early stoppage of any sorts. It was the last second of the fight. Yes, it was, but he was done. There was no coming back from that. That was a deadly left hook that he caught Augusto Sakai when he was circling out to the left, I believe. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik proves once again that he deserves to be up in this top division for heavyweights. Yes, sometimes he doesn't push the pace as much as the other heavyweight fighters, and maybe he waits for that one-punch knockout, but when it does come, he seizes the opportunity and he makes sure to capitalize on that punch, which everyone loves to see in a heavyweight. When that fight was first starting, I had a bad thought, like this could be a boring fight, because they were kind of just circling. They were trying to get a feel for each other. I get it's the first round, but not a lot was being thrown, And we were told early on that Rozenstruik himself, he said, I'm going to push the pace this fight. I learned from my mistakes from the last fight. He wasn't pushing the pace as much as he said he was going to. Don't get me wrong. He still got the win, but I feel like there's still definitely room for an improvement for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. But this is no knock on him for sure. That's a fantastic win and one of my favorite knockouts I've seen this year. So congrats to Rozenstruik, and I can't wait to see you back in the octagon.
Man, what a knockout from Biggie Boy. Again, Hunter summed it up perfectly. None of us were surprised necessarily that this fight ended the way it did. I think at least 2 of us had a first round Rozenstruik knockout. I think I did, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. I think I might have. But what a knockout from Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And I said this is what he needed. He needs that momentum back, and he needs that belief back in his own hands and his own power. And he just did it. I mean, I have to agree with Hunter here. I was watching this fight, and I saw this punch land on Augusto Sakai, and I thought, that didn't land. Then he starts falling, and then I think, has he slipped? Then he hits the ground the way he does, and I think, okay, it's landed. Then he hits him with that unearthly ground and pound shot, and it's like a sledgehammer into the face of Augusto Sakai, and I'm like, okay, fight's over. I apologize, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And no, it was an amazing knockout, and a very well timed knockout too. I think what we see with a lot of guys who carry power, especially guys like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, it almost seems like they hit that hard, they punch in slow motion, and this is what catches the punch out. They hit that hard, it almost seems like it hasn't happened, or it's happened too slow to be powerful. It's a weird paradox of movement, but it seems to be something like that. And that's what happened. You two predicted very accurately that it would be a cagey opening round, and of course that is what happened. But I did have the feeling that something was going to happen, because especially in heavyweight fights, there has to be a pressure release at some point, and that punch was the pressure release. It also ended up being the fight-winning pressure release. So excellent win for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Very well placed shot. Again, I'm in agreement with Hunter on where he can improve, though. He needs to push the pace more. I mean, having one punch knockout power is an excellent commodity to have, irrespective of what division you're in. We see it with Derek Lewis all the time. He looks like he's finished until he isn't. But if you have the ability to push the pace, you have to do that as well. Sometimes it's better to pressure an opponent and then force the punch that leads to the knockout, as opposed to relying on, to a degree, luck and fate to deliver you the chance. Because we've seen that so many times. We saw the example that actually came to mind was Robbie Lawler against Colby Covington when they fought, because Lawler spent 25 minutes waiting for that one shot, and it never came. And by the time he realized that, it was too late. There was only about 30 seconds to go. So guys like Rosenstruik should start pushing the pace more, because they have the power to take advantage of the opportunities that creates. But again, I'm not dissing Rosenstruik, and I'm certainly not insulting him, because he would probably knock my head into orbit. Amazing win for Jairzinho Rosenstruik, and he should be back on track.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we all had Rosenstruik. I had by a decision, and I stand by that, by the way the first round was going. But I mean, Rosenstruik is going to knock anybody out. So all right, I'll take it. I think the way he fought that last minute of the first round is how he needs to fight every single fight. Because it's not that you're sprinting at your opponent, but you're taking the center. You're not letting your opponent back you up. Sakai was actually backing Rosenstruik up quite a bit, and he wasn't even throwing anything. There was only a couple jabs thrown, but just the presence of Sakai was able to back him up, especially when Rosenstruik is facing a taller, bigger guy than him, like if he was facing an Ngannou again. And you can't even talk about that fight because that's just an anomaly, the way that went down. But if he was facing a taller guy, even like a Volkov, he cannot be the one, or like a Cyril Gane again, he cannot be the one that's being backed up, even if he's the smaller guy. He has to kind of do what Mark Hunt used to do. And they're different fighting styles, but what Mark Hunt used to do was take these big steps and plant his feet and take a couple of shots, but you give that one big shot. And just like Mark Hunt used to do, he would knock guys clean out. Rosenstruik has that ability. He has that Derek Lewis power. He has that Rosenstruik power. He has that Mark Hunt power. He can knock anybody out on the face of the earth. If he can do that, if he can take a couple punches to give one, I think that fighting style would benefit him so much. But what he has even more going for him than a Mark Hunt is that he's more mobile than Mark Hunt would be in that situation too. So he is able to, if he's able to take a couple steps forward, move his head, use his head movement and stuff, and then evade and then land one, I think that style could be so beneficial towards Rosenstruik. The way he was fighting that last minute was similar to that. He was cutting off the angles for his opponent, and then on the cage whenever he was backing him up, which is when he landed the shot. But the first time whenever Sakai was actually having to escape because Rosenstruik was putting on the pressure, what happened? He knocked him out. And again, that was such a weird knockout. Keelan, you described it perfectly. It was weird. It was such a slow punch, and he didn't even really turn his hips or anything. It was just like he threw his arm out there, and then he just falls. And I don't know if you guys caught this too, but Sakai was out, and then the second shot woke him up, and then the ref stepped in. So that's just how hard Rosenstruik hits. He knocks you out, and then he wakes you back up again, and one more shot. You don't want to know what happens after another shot. So that is just Rosenstruik's power right there. I completely agree with you guys. I think just a little bit of change in the style, just putting on that much more pressure in that fight. The one time, that last minute where he's starting to put pressure on is where he got the knockout. Imagine if he's doing that for every single one of his fights and everything. I think Gane could go differently because Cyril Gane did not really fight to his best ability, in my opinion. I think he was kind of keeping it at a distance. If Rosenstruik is pushing the pace in that fight, could be a different fight, or at least he'll come up with a different outcome of the fight. I just think that style is what he's going to have to do whenever he's facing the highest level of competition, because you can't just sit back and wait whenever you're facing guys like Volkov, guys like Cyril Gane, guys like Ngannou, but that's, again, I don't like to compare that, but you guys get what I mean. It's just that little change in style, and I think he could be really, really good. And I think this win is huge for him because he gets that momentum going again, and Rosenstruik is back. Big knockout.
Agreed. Can't say anything else more to that. I mean, it's perfectly said.
Yeah, I actually love the Mark Hunt model. I think that's the perfect centerpiece to use in this scenario. Mark Hunt used that to great effect because whenever you have a taller fighter, just to very briefly explain the technical aspect of it, when you have a taller fighter, they obviously have longer limbs, they have longer arms, and so on. So if you let a taller fighter back you up, they can rain their punches over your guard or through your guard. Whereas if you're pressurizing them, they're going to start throwing their hands out wildly to try and get off you. And what Mark Hunt used to do so well was he'd let the shot go by him, and then it opens up the body shot, it opens up the head shots because their punches are already out, and he's working on the inside. And Rosenstruik would use that to such good effect, especially against guys like Volkov, because big, tall fighters do not like being pressurized and having to be the aggressor and punch. And Rosenstruik's the perfect model for a counter puncher as well. So if he is able to do that, then I think he would enjoy great success. He can't afford to take two punches to throw the big one, though. I think especially after a Francis Ngannou knockout, his chin is and his defense is always going to be a little suspect.
That's true.
And I still don't think his boxing defense is fantastic anyway. So if he can use his movement to neutralize his poor boxing defense, he could very well find a way around it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to know exactly what we're talking about, watch Mark Hunt versus Stefan Struve. That is the perfect example for what the model would be for Rosenstruck, in my opinion. So
Knocked him out of his
absolutely.
shoes.
Yeah, and that was the one that split his jaw, right? And then he had to go and get like all that stuff. Yeah. Anyways, the UFC 263 is right around the corner. Very, very, very stacked card. Other than the title fights, what fight are we most looking forward to seeing on this card? Hunter, starting with you.
There are so many good fights on this card, guys. I would be remiss if I did not say Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. I mean, Nate Diaz is a superstar. If he's on TV, you must watch it. It's fun to hear him during his interviews. It's fun to see him while fighting, and it's just fun to see Nate Diaz. And to have him face the number 3 contender, Leon Edwards, I feel like Nate Diaz's style in general is just trouble for anyone who goes against it because he's so durable. Yet he's so good on the ground. So if you manage to hurt Nate Diaz, which very few people can, he'll be knocked on his butt. But he likes to be there. He likes to be on the ground. He likes to have his back against the ground so he can use his fantastic Brazilian jiu-jitsu. This is a tough fight for Leon Edwards, and the matchmakers did a fantastic job here because Leon Edwards is coming off of a no contest, and then I think like a year and a half of just no fighting in general. So to come back and basically fight Nate Diaz, who is just absolutely nightmare to face anywhere if you're on the feet or on the ground, is going to be a tough contest, especially if you're the number 3 contender, because you have everything to lose, while Nate Diaz has nothing to lose. He'll get any fight he wants, especially if he moves down to lightweight. He can just reestablish himself again. He's been at lightweight before. He can go back there. This is a win-win situation for Nate Diaz right here, and I can't wait to see him back in the octagon. But another fight you cannot sleep on here is Brad Riddell versus Drew Dober. The lightweight fight, I'm pretty sure it's the headlining the prelims. It's going to be absolute nonstop action. Both fighters are so energetic and leave nothing to the hands of the judges. So just make sure to watch both fights. Make sure to watch the whole fight card because I'm pretty sure I don't want to take anyone like picks away, but Chase Hooper fights in the early prelims. So make sure to just watch as much as you can. I'd start from the first fight in the early prelims and end the last fight, It's going to be fantastic. There won't be a dull moment in the octagon, so just make sure to tune in.
There are so many great fights in this card and a lot of fights that are going to slip through the fingers of many people. I like the Riddell Dober pick because that's going to be a very energetic, high-paced fight. My sleeper fight is going to be Demian Maia, Belal Muhammad.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a really, really good fight. It's actually funny. We have both guys who suffered the DQ. We have Leon Edwards fighting Diaz, and then we have Belal Muhammad fighting Demian Maia. I think Belal Muhammad's got a very good chance of winning that fight, and I think that's going to push him up the division further. But the one fight that I'm looking forward to the most, and it's not a lack of originality, I will justify it now, it is Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards. I can't add anything really beyond what Hunter said because he said it very well. The reason I love this fight is that this has seismic implications for welterweight. If Nate Diaz does what he seems to love doing and he shocks the world again, he's getting a title shot. Like, be under no illusion here. Nate Diaz, who is unranked at welterweight, could be getting a title shot after one fight if he beats Leon Edwards, and the matrix will just be broken in combat sports. It just will be. Um, I've advocated Leon Edwards for a long time. I mean, we all have, but I've always tried to remind people of how good Leon Edwards truly is because he is very underappreciated. And this, even before the eye poke against Bilal Muhammad, he was pacing him up as we
Oh
all
yeah.
agreed, and his kickboxing just hadn't missed a beat. And he is going to run into a nightmare opponent in Nate Diaz because Diaz eats punches, he eats kicks. As I have said before, and I still maintain this position, how Nate Diaz is still alive is a miracle of modern science because he should not be alive with the damage he's taken. I mean, that kick as he was falling to the ground against Masvidal,
Oh
it was like a
man.
baseball bat to the skull. But this is what Nate Diaz does. He is tough. He is like the Terminator. I'm convinced that's what he is at this point because no human being can take that kind of punishment. And Edwards could be in difficulty here because Leon's jiu-jitsu and ground game is quite underappreciated. He is solid. He is good on the ground. But if he tries to take this fight to the ground, you're running into one of the best BJJ practitioners the UFC has ever seen. One half of the Diaz brothers, Nate. Nate is just so good on the ground, and no one wants to hit the deck with him. Even again, the Masvidal fight, Jorge was more than happy to let him stand up because he is an anaconda on the ground, and you do not want to get entangled with Nate Diaz because he will choke you out. I mean, again, we all know McGregor's jiu-jitsu isn't great, but look at how quickly he took his
Oh
back
yeah.
and finished him there. Look at the triangle against Kurt Pellegrino, to name but two. And he will do that to Leon Edwards because he is just that damn good. So this fight is huge. If Leon Edwards wins this, he's next after Colby Covington, most likely. Personally, I'd have Wonder Boy, but Dane is probably going to put Leon if he wins. But by God, if Nate Diaz wins, it will. I actually think if Nate Diaz wins this fight, the impact will be equivalent to beating McGregor
Oh, I think
because
so.
he will have the title fight next after this, and it will just be such an amazing spectacle to see. I love Nate Diaz. I respect Leon Edwards a lot, and this is going to be a killer fight.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I have to start off with Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. We all have to have that on there because
Hmm.
it's such a crazy fight and it's such a huge fight. The stakes for this is unbelievable because realistically, the winner of this will be getting the next title shot realistically after Colby Covington, and that's because of Nate Diaz. Both ways, I think. If Leon Edwards beats Nate Diaz, it's because of the name. It propels him even further into there. If Nate Diaz wins, you have to give Nate Diaz the title shot. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. The biggest factor for this fight for me, though, and it is that it's going 5 rounds, and I think this benefits and negatively affects both of them. Nate Diaz, because if he gets cut, it might get stopped. And I say that half jokingly, but I also mean that because that was obviously how Jorge Masvidal ended him. And that is one of the things. His skin is like paper now. He's been in so many wars. His chin still holds up, but he bleeds off of a jab. And Leon Edwards will be very precise with where he punches him and where he lands, and the power will still be there. I don't think he'll be able to finish Nate Diaz because no one can finish Nate Diaz. And by that, I mean like actually knock him out or submit him. But if the doctor's stoppage, I think is a realistic possibility if it goes that long. If Leon Edwards is able to keep the distance and control the fight like he was Bilal Muhammad, and stuff like that, if he's able to do that over Nate Diaz and prevent Nate Diaz from closing the distance, or if he doesn't rush in on Nate Diaz, because I think it would be a mistake for Leon Edwards if he drops Nate Diaz, which is a possibility to rush in on Nate Diaz because Nate Diaz might get dropped, but he's never really overly rocked. We've seen that against Connor. We've seen that against Jorge Masvidal with that kick. He got down the kick and he was already thinking about jujitsu. He was already open guard, already ready to go. If Leon Edwards goes in there, that's a dangerous spot for him. And that he could be in real trouble. So, but he needs to keep his distance and everything. And the other side of the 25 minutes, which goes against Leon Edwards and for Nate Diaz, is the pace. Yes, Leon Edwards has gone 5 rounds before. Yes, he's been in multiple 5-round fights, but he's never fought a guy with the pace and pressure of Nate Diaz. he will continue coming forward. He will continue the volume that he throws, the power that he throws, the stuff. You can't slip up one moment with Nate Diaz, or even he'll rock you. The Conor fight's a great example. I know we're not supposed to bring it up, but it is a great example of what goes on, because he rocked Conor really bad and then went for the takedown and then got the submission off of that, which was huge because Conor, went in for the takedown because he was rocked. If Nate Diaz is able to wear out Leon Edwards enough to where Leon Edwards does slip up, because Leon Edwards will use his wrestling. He will do it. It is very underrated. Keelan, that was a great point. It's very underrated. And he does that. He has one of the best takedown defensive stuff, but he actually uses it offensively to set up his striking. He can't do that against Nate Diaz, or else that will go very badly against him. It's a great fight, though. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be fireworks, huge implications and everything. As for my sleeper fight, though, and I'm so glad, this just shows how stacked this card is that we all three have different sleeper fights. Mine is Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. So these guys actually fought before. And the fight was actually unbelievable. Eric Anders was absolutely mauling Darren Stewart. Then Darren Stewart came back a little bit, rocked Eric Anders. Then Eric Anders, it was an accidental illegal knee is what they deemed it. This was actually right after Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. So it probably should have been a disqualification. But with everything that was going on, I remember we talked about this on the podcast a while ago. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But this fight should deliver. It should be absolutely amazing. Darren Stewart always brings it. Eric Anders always brings it. And I think we're going to get you can't say fight of the night because it's so early, but we'll get a fight of the prelims, I'll call it, for this fight right here. It's going to be amazing. And just like Hunter said, you have to tune into every single one of these fights. Chase Hooper's on the early prelims. It's amazing. Top to bottom, the card is stacked. It's going to be awesome. Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards, of course, that is going to be the fight to watch other than the two title fights for sure.
Yeah, no, and if that's not, incentive enough to watch this, you guys can watch history unfold. Like Jack said, this will be the first time in UFC history where a non-title, non-main event fight is going to be a 5-round fight with Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. This is the co-main event, and they're getting 5 rounds here just because we have Nate Diaz on this card. So there's more history. You can be a part of it, watch it live. But imagine, if you will, all right, hang on with me here. Nate Diaz wins this fight, and he gets a title shot in the future. Conor McGregor beats Dustin Poirier, gets a title shot in this picture. Could you imagine a fight where Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz both have title shots on the exact same card? That would be an absolute pay-per-view killer. And then they both win. They both call each other out in the final in the post-fight interview.
That's the birth of the 165-pound division right there.
That would be the birth right there. Dana, Joe Rogan's been talking about it for years. Dana, make this happen as soon as Nate Diaz wins and if Conor McGregor wins and if everything in the universe falls perfectly, make this happen. But this like you guys both said, this fight has so much implication behind it. And the pressure that Leon Edwards has on his shoulders right now, it's immense. And I really hope he can get through this fight. But this is the fight where champions are made. I feel like they're brewing champions right here. So make sure to tune into UFC 263 because this card has so many different implications. And can we just talk about real quick Devson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno? That first fight was absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite fights of all time. And now they're fighting for a second time on one of the best cards of the year. Please, for the love of God, tune in and watch this fight.
Ladies and gentlemen, the UFC's new hype man, Hunter Boss.
Yes, let's get it.
Homegrown talent. We need to see this happen.
And predictions, extreme predictions going on.
Yeah, extreme indeed. Yeah.
Ben Askren's son is on the prelims. We have Hunter talking about the co-main event being 5 rounds. I mean, it's a madness. It's just all kicking off. And you kind of have to strap yourself in and watch the fireworks because everything is mad right now. Seriously, people, watch UFC 263. If you're not, I don't know why, and I can't logicalize that. But what I can logicalize is how damn good this card is and the implications that all these fights have. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring it back real quick to the Diaz situation because I really like the point Jack made. And it's that point about Diaz's scarring tissue. This fight, a very big aspect to this fight that is never an aspect is the doctor. And this fight is going to depend on whether the doctor knows mixed martial arts or whether the doctor doesn't. Because if this doctor determines that Nate Diaz can't continue, he will stop the fight the way he did in the Masvidal fight. And again, I actually agreed with the doctor stoppage in the Masvidal fight because doctors are a bit like referees in professional sports. It's a job where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If Diaz had lost his eye, we'd be calling for the doctor to be arrested for negligence. If the doctor let the fight, or if the doctor stopped the fight, we'd be hating on him for ruining a great fight. So the doctor's never going to win. He's there to do his job. But Nate Diaz is one of those rare specimens of people that literally, it's almost like he sees his own blood and he fights better somehow. That is an absolute truth. We've seen that all throughout his career. And the problem is one good stiff jab from Leon Edwards is going to open up, and it's going to open up underneath his eye as well,
Yep.
which is the worst part to swell because that will start swelling your eye and it will lead to more bleeding. So I really hope Nate covers up fully for this fight because if he's able to last 2, 3, 4 rounds, I can see him tiring Leon out and I can see him pushing closer and closer to the win. But he's got to keep his hands up because you do not want the doctor becoming a factor in this fight. And, you know, hardcore fight fans know Nate Diaz, and we know he will literally battle through facing a tank if he has to. But the doctor is there to do a job. Do not let the doctor be a factor in this fight. Keep your destiny in your own hands and cover yourself up so you do not get busted up because Leon Edwards' kickboxing will find you if you don't. And quite frankly, that was the last point I had to make. But the last point is this. If you are still not content in watching UFC 263, I mean, are you not entertained? This is Gladiator all over again. Are you not entertained? Hunter just gave one of the most rousing, inspirational speeches I've ever heard. Absolutely amazing. I mean, I'll add on to that. You know, you need to see this fight card. You know, we have Diaz Edwards. We've got a rematch of the greatest flyweight fight in history. And then we've got Adesanya Vittori, which we haven't even mentioned.
We haven't even talked about that.
We haven't even mentioned the middleweight strap being on the line. Quite frankly, I have my own opinions on that, but that's going to be an amazing fight. And if we've got you this hyped about the co-main and the co-main, how good do you think the rest of the card is? We cannot do our job any better than we've already done. Hunter cannot do his new hype man job better than he's already done. Watch this card, people. It is worth it. The implications run deep and they are going to be massive. Personally, I don't agree with the 165 division. Perhaps we'll discuss that in the next podcast. But seriously, I mean, the universe feels like it's falling apart at this point, and literally anything could happen in the combat sports world. Do not miss history on Saturday night. If Nate Diaz wins, this is going to be one of those moments where you can say, I was there, because he is getting a title shot if he wins. Leon Edwards is probably getting a title shot if he wins. But if Nate wins this and Nate becomes the face of the company and the face of the welterweight division, how gangster would that be, by the way?
Insane.
Imagine going to corporate events and going to like sponsorship meetings and all this stuff and having Nate Diaz showing up in the hat and the sunglasses on the back and the jeans and everything. That's just my guy, you know. And people just watch this fight, card, okay? In all seriousness, and aside from Hunter's leadership speech there, watch the fight card. Just do, okay?
Hunter, you're taking everything Keelan works for. I mean, he used to be the hype man and everything.
I didn't mean to. I'm just so
guys at the
excited,
press conference. You know who the real fight is.
You're gonna have to bear that title until someone else one ups you. I mean, Keelan, now it's on to you. But yes, you guys already said it. He's ready to go. I mean, this is getting serious. But yes, I mean, just the chaos that will ensue if Nate Diaz pulls this off. Which, by the way, we haven't really talked that much about how good Leon Edwards is. I think he looks so good against Bilal Muhammad. Yes, the fight unfortunately ended the way it did, but man, he was piecing him up. If Leon Edwards fights like that, it could be a long night for Nate Diaz. But it's Nate Diaz. You have to entertain the possibility that he shows up and fights like he did against Anthony Pettis. You never know. It's amazing. You guys already said it. UFC 263 is going to be amazing, top to bottom. We all have prelim fights as our sleeper fights. These could steal fight of the night any other fight card. They're going to have to be competing against each other. This is another fight card that should be 75,000 bonuses all the way around because it's too stacked. Fans will be there. It's going to be amazing. The environment will be there. I'm not competing with any of your guys' speeches because I can't. I'm getting myself hyped up about this. This is not anything, but yes, absolutely. And we will have a full preview. We aren't even really supposed to be talking about UFC 263. That's for the next podcast. We have a full preview for UFC 263 on the next podcast. So look forward to that. But yes, we're already hyped about it. That shows you how good this card is going to be. And this was a great podcast, guys. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Please go ahead to make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can listen everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to go ahead and follow us on Instagram at mma.island. And please check out all of our work on our great website, mmaisland.net. Again, thank you everyone so much for listening. Great podcast, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Highlight of the year right there, Hunter's speech, might I add. People, in all seriousness, we're everywhere. We are. I've already outlined where we are because we are everywhere. We are it whenever he's in the sewer. That's us because we are everywhere. We are in all your countries. We're on your radio. We're in your living room. We're in wherever. Ladies and gentlemen, check it.
We're no clown. We're not it, but
yeah.
We're there
in a situation where it was. We are not that. Okay, good clarification. Actually, kind of saved my point there. But people, in all seriousness, we are everywhere. Check out the website, and yeah, thank you very much to congressional candidate Hunter Boss for that amazing speech.
Keelan said it. You have to listen to it. Check us out.